Some devote recording. We'll begin chapter 11, review, summary study. So chapter 11 is titled The Universal Form, where Lord would manifest his universal form. And just to recap quickly, Bhagavad Gita overall has 3 primary sections. The first section, the 6 chapters, will talk about Jiva and Jiva, who is Jiva, how does he exist, what is his reality of Jiva's position, which is the soul, and how karma works in the context of Jiva's life. That is individual reality. And then the middle section talks about the supreme reality and the relation between Jiva and the supreme reality. Bhakti is focused, how Bhakti is the ultimate process for achieving perfection for the Jiva. And ultimately, third section talks about the reality of the nature around. Individual reality, ultimate reality, the relation between them, and then finally, the reality of nature around, so that the Jiva can operate well within this nature, so that it can work towards achieving perfection. So, in a sense, the first 12 chapters conclude the message. The last 6 chapters enable us to understand how we can live in this world better, so that we can perform bhakti to achieve the ultimate reality. So in chapter 10, the essence is in the Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita, how the Jiva can relate to the supreme reality, and how supreme reality relates to Jiva in reciprocation, and that combination, how it helps achieve perfection. So that is the primary thing. And to relate to the supreme, one needs to understand how the reality can be seen within this world. And Krishna showed how one can perceive anything attractive in this world is actually a manifestation of the supreme. That was the concept given there. So anything attractive in this world is but a representation of that supreme Lord. So that concept is given, and how Lord manifests in various forms is discussed in depth. Just a second here. Okay. So chapter 11 is a continuation of this theme, where Arjuna, the chapter begins with a request from Arjuna. So far in 9th and 10th chapter, Lord discussed about the reality of absolute truth, how it exists, how it, what's the nature of the reality of the absolute truth. Now Arjuna would request for a demonstration of it. He understood, okay, this is the highest reality. God is the highest reality. Now he wants to see what the reality is, because just theory is not sufficient to really understand the concept. So he wants to see in practicality what that reality, how does it really exist. So Krishna says, everything comes from me, and the universe comes from me, and also universe exists within me. So these concepts, just to hear them, make one baffled because of the complexity of what is described there. So he just wants to really understand what is the nature of this reality, how it can be experienced in this world. So he was very curious of it. So naturally, as a student who is curious, he wants to know more about that reality. So he asks about it. And then chapter further continues with Krishna's description of this particular reality, the universal form of the Lord, which is a rare description. Krishna, through this depiction, he explains how this reality exists. so that Arjuna is prepared to actually witness this reality. And ultimately, in this depiction, Krishna, description, not depiction, actually, description, Krishna explains the greatness of this particular form that he's going to show, and also gives Arjuna the ability to see him. So that is described in this section, Krishna's description of the universal form. Because Bhagavad Gita is, a nested conversation. So there are many layers of conversations. So we see here at the next level of conversation, nested level of conversation, Sanjaya describing this universal form as he witnesses to the blind king Dhritarashtra. And there is a bigger description given by, as explained by Arjuna as he witnesses the universal form. That is 15 to 31. This is a larger description compared to the previous ones, because naturally Arjuna, direct witness, is going to explain in more detail about what he is witnessing. So that is this. And then the chapter moves to describe, after Arjuna has witnessed, he again requests Krishna to bring back to the original two-handed form where he can relate to him in a better way. And no, actually here, before this, in this universal form itself, Krishna tells Arjuna to become his instrument, because he shows his universal form where he is devouring everybody, all the people in the war field. So in a way, Krishna is the ultimate doer, and he's just telling Arjuna, you become an instrument in this process. You are not the one who is doing. You are not the one to acquire any sinful activity, sinful reactions. You become an instrument, become and attain glory. And Arjuna renders prayers in this 35 to 46 verses to this universal form, and requests him to manifest the two-handed form where he can relate, because he is fearful after seeing this form. And ultimately, through this entire episode, Krishna shows how pure devotion is the only way to receive any kind of spiritual vision. Either it could be in the universal form or in the two-handed form. It is only through bhakti one can attain the vision of the Supreme Lord. So ultimately, this entire chapter is about this conclusion here, given here. It is only through bhakti one can understand Krishna and attain his form, attain the darshan of his form. Yeah, let's begin with the first section. So Arjuna inquires to demonstrate what he has been describing so far in the especially last 2-3 chapters, how he is the ultimate source of everything, right? So Krishna told, everything comes from me. Everything attractive in this world also comes from me. So when you see any of this, you should understand it is actually coming from me. You don't, if you only see the reality in individual, in its own individual terms, you may go through illusion, right? If somebody becomes a big CEO, or we just glorify him, we are in illusion, because everything is an empowerment coming from Krishna. So we should never lose sight of that ultimate reality. So, and because Krishna is the source of all the universes, Arjuna wants to see how he is the source of all the universes. How, can he demonstrate what he is describing so far? That was the inquiry of Arjuna. Yeah. So suppose there is a classroom, and the teacher is describing a figurative concept, very intricate, complicated concept. And all of a sudden, the same thing that the teacher is describing, suddenly starts manifesting in the in the background. Everybody just turns around to see what the demonstration is, the live demonstration of what is being described, right? So that's exactly the scenario here. So all of a sudden, upon the request of Arjuna, Krishna would manifest this gigantic universal form. So until now, there is a great description of who is God, how everything comes from Him, how the real purpose of life is to please Him and devote one's life to His service. So all that is good, but everybody is hearing this theory. Everybody who is assembled there, even Sanjaya also. But now the whole context changes with a direct demonstration of what that Supreme Lord is. So that's exactly what happens in this. A very intriguing form would appear to everyone's surprise and is manifest right before their eyes. So Krishna reveals his universal form. Before that, he actually provides some context so that one can actually see this with the right intention and understanding, right? For example, we all might have seen planetarium, right? We all had seen planetarium. The guide, the voice there first describes what it is going to manifest or what it is going to show. Because without the description of anything, say suppose he's talking about a peculiar quality of a galaxy, a nebula of stars which are manifested in a very special way. Until we hear about what is the greatness of that, we may not really appreciate when we witness it. We need to have some context so that we can appreciate what gets demonstrated before our eyes, isn't it? So that's how everything works in this world. We all see the same thing, but we all react differently. For a message or for a thing that we see, everybody's inner intent is different towards each of these things, right? Everything that manifests in our life. For example, the chart below here, it's demonstrating a stock market crash. Suppose a person who doesn't know anything about stocks, right? He comes and there was a big screen where a lot of people are watching this market crash. And this person who comes from a village who doesn't know anything about stocks, he just sees, for him it means nothing. And he would be fascinated why all these people are reacting in this way. But for somebody who has invested in the money in the markets, it is a big pain. I mean, because he relates to it as a loss to his personal wealth. So in this way, everybody relates to a thing that is manifested in a very different way, right? For example, we see deity, or even before we become, we got an understanding of devotion service. When we see the form of deity, our understanding is something. It could be a deal of business, how God can help us achieve, success in our life. Or we may not even have faith. We think, oh, this is a stone. How people are so foolish to, do any worship to this. So in this way, everybody sees according to what they think or what they understand, what their intentions towards the object is. Right? Whenever we see a thing, we don't just see it with our naked eye. We see with our intentions. Anything, any message you read, you have certain intentions on how it should be or how it is. It renders different feelings in our life, right? So in this way, so similarly, before Krishna demonstrates this universal form, Krishna describes this universal form and the characteristics of that universal form in a brief way, so that when Arjuna witnesses it, he gets the right understanding of it. Right? So after that, again, Sanjaya describes in brief terms. After that, there is a greater description by Arjuna of how this universal form actually is rendered before his eyes. So the question of Arjuna was how the universe is contained within you, O Krishna. And Krishna actually demonstrates this universal form, which is quite intriguing. It has thousands of faces, thousands of mouths, and thousands of um, various instruments in the hands, and it's a very terrorizing, fascinating, thing to witness. And it was so fascinating that Arjuna could not see where the beginning is, where the middle is, and where the end is of this, because the whole he just like in a movie theater, you just go inside, sit down, and first thing that happens is everything is closed. You are completely removed from the outside reality, and then there is a new thing that is projected into your eyes. So similarly, Arjuna loses sight of everything else around him, and he just witnesses this universal form. And it is very scary because there is fire emitted from certain mouths, there are snakes, and there are eyes with a reddish tinge. It's very ghastly form, and some of these forms are actually devouring the people that are actually his friends, colleagues, family members. So it's a very intriguing sight for Arjuna. First, he was fascinated to see this gigantic universal form, and slowly that fascination turns into terror. The reason being, um, generally, whenever we relate to universe, we only see the space aspect of it, right? We only think in terms of space, but there is also the concept of time. The concept of time, how it actually manifests the space. In this particular manifestation, Krishna not only manifests this gigantic, spatial form, which is very fascinating. It also shows what happens in the near future, which is the killing of all these people, his relatives, which Arjuna could not witness right away, because even though it is going to eventually happen as part of war, but to suddenly witness that was a terrorizing situation for Arjuna. Uh, uh, and the concept here is a time travel, because Krishna is taking the time forward to show what is going to come in the near future. Time travel, as we know, is a very intriguing concept, and even Einstein actually talks about the space-time continuum, um, how space is very much correlated with time. You can read about this in this article here. I was just reading how time varies according to how at what speed an object moves in relation to other objects. But time travel is a fascinating concept that many scientists have went about and trying to see if we can actually travel in time, but there is not much progress in that direction. But Einstein had a very good scientific proof. He had actually mathematical equations proving how space and time are related. um, Basically, if an object can move at the speed of light, the time it the time the time with which it can how the time varies is actually in correlation to how the speed of the object. I may not be able to explain very well. You can read about it. But the real question is, can we go back in time and actually change things? Not only just go back in time, but can we change things? Is a very important, a scientific pursuit. Even in modern science, there is a branch of science that that goes about exploring this concept. So one of the famous paradox in that concept is grandfather paradox, where suppose a person um, A has a grandfather, and the point is whether this person A can go back in time to the time of his grandfather and actually say kill him. That's not a possibility, because if grandfather gets killed, if he's allowed to travel in time and witness his grandfather and is able to kill him, and if the grandfather is killed, there is no son. If the son is not there, there is no grandson. So this is a paradox in a way to prove that time travel is kind of impossible concept, right? This exists in science fiction movies, and how it works is a very related, very complex concept. But it is not something that is a possibility for humans or living entities within this material reality. But this is something that someone like Krishna can do, the supreme reality. Any questions so far?
It is very interesting how time is still, even though the science has advanced so much, Prabhuji, that time is something which is beyond anybody's conception.
Right, yeah, that's true. Time is a very intriguing concept. How, and the other thing is, in space you can move up or down, but in time you can only move forward. That's why it is considered the most valuable asset. If you lose time, you won't get it back. Time is one thing that you can only expend. The time we lost in our life, say we are 40 years, the time we lost is gone forever. It's a reality beyond irretrievability.
Prabhuji, I didn't understand that grandfather paradox that you have, the picture that you put.
Yeah. So this is to prove time travel is not possible. Suppose a person A, this grandson, he travels in time. He travels in time and also can perform certain actions. Say, for example, it is a possibility. Okay. Now he traveled to the time of his grandfather, and he can perform certain action, means say he kills his grandfather. Okay. So in this reality where the grandfather got killed by the time travel by the grandson, once the grandfather is killed, there is no possibility of the father of the boy being born.
Coming back to the real reality.
Yeah, again coming back to the current time frame. So that reality won't exist, because so going back in time and also changing things is proven through this paradox to be impossible. So the concept why am I discussing here is, so here this is the first time that anyone actually has heard about this concept of time travel, that Krishna demonstrates how he's actually already killed all these people. So he's just asking Arjuna, you become an instrument. That's a very interesting time travel concept, isn't it?
So are we saying that Krishna here is showing that he has traveled forward and showing what is going to happen, and now we are in the present?
Correct. I mean, that he can do, that Krishna can do. I mean, many people will be fascinated, hey, how he could show what is going to come in the future. Because that's not something they can relate to. That's why I'm just explaining this concept that people can question like this. And so we answer that it is not possible at our level, but it is possible at a higher level, at the Supreme Lord's level. Is that making sense? Because this is a question that comes generally. That's why I put this concept here. Making
Thank you,
sense?
Prabhu.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
I mean, these concepts generally people don't talk about it. These are only, some scientific articles. If you read, I was reading certain articles on this chapter by Caitanya Prabhu. That's how I got this. I heard about it, but I wanted to write this here because it's in relation to this. And then Arjuna describes further the universal form. And this particular universal form is for a particular purpose. Right? Any manifestation of the Supreme Lord is actually, it is for a specific purpose. So this manifestation where Krishna is showing the devouring of all these living entities is the demonstration of destruction within this material reality, right? In the material reality, there also exists destruction. That's the inevitable concept, isn't it? Generally, many people who talk about many religions, they only talk about the positive or the not positive side. Everything is positive side, but only the how Lord is all loving, all of those concepts, right? But not talk about the reality of this nature where there is destruction. That's a ultimate reality everybody has to face through. Destruction is intrinsic part of material world. So any theology that does not incorporate the destructive nature of material world is a very incomplete theology, isn't it? Because if you go by the theology, when you face reality of this world, you will be confused, because that's the reason there was one a lot of Christian priests or in other religions, those who are devoted to God, and in their own personal life when tragedies occurred, they could not accept it. Even Darwin was one such person. Darwin was a very devout person before, but when he lost his son untimely, he went on a pursuit to understand this world without the existence of the reality of God. That's how he came up with this theory of evolution. And there is a Jewish rabbi who wrote about the concept of how God has to be one of these. He should not be omnipotent. God, we say he's all powerful, all loving, and all merciful. Three things, right? And his own son died. So to come to terms with that reality of the death of his son, he talks about, God must be one, he must not be having one of these qualities. He cannot have simultaneously all these three qualities, where he is all merciful, all knowing, and all powerful. If he is all knowing, he knows that my son has died. And if he's all merciful, he would have revived him. If he's all powerful, he would have revived him, right? If he's all merciful and all powerful, then he would have revived him, right? But it didn't happen. So it means that God must be lacking one of these three. So like that, there are many concepts that come to one's mind if the theology doesn't support the concept of destructive nature of this world. You are getting it? So our concept, actually, our theology talks about how middle world, you would witness destruction in here. you would see misery. So this is part of this package. And use this reality, means temporariness of this world, as a stepping stone to redirect yourself to the eternality. Meaning, how you can leverage looking at this nature, nature's destructive nature, or the temporariness of this material world, use that as a stepping stone or as a means to actually focus on the ultimate reality, right? How this material world is temporary, understand that so that you can focus on the ultimate reality. So it acts to help actually. The reality of this material nature should not obstruct our connection with the supreme reality. If we have only this kind of a sweet concept that, oh, Krishna is all merciful and he's all loving, he will never give me pain, that that is taking yourself away from the reality of the nature. It doesn't work like that. For example, I think the example is coming right here. A child may always want to play with toys, but parents would take away sometimes, right? Because parents will see the ultimate interest. They know what is in the best interest of this child, right? For the child, the parent may appear very cruel. Do they really love me? Why do they, if they love me, why do they take away? Even for example, Manjari, every single day she cries. Every day she wants to watch some cartoons for some time, and every time we take away, she is very sad, and she will be shouting at the as much as possible she can shout. She will shout. That's how they perceive, right? So similarly, we in the material world, even though we are grown up, because of our attachment to the material reality, sometimes we'll be due to our attachments, we go through so much pain when things are taken away from us that we are attached to. But actually there is something higher that Krishna is actually arranging for us, so that we can connect to him in a better way. We should see like that, because we understand God is all powerful, all knowing, and all loving. We accept that fact. It means that any incident that happens in our life, any experience that we go through in our life, is a must, is definitely planned for our own good. It's not out of God's carelessness towards us. It is God's love for us. How we can see in that way, how we can connect dots in a Krishna conscious way, that requires maturity, understanding, association, all of that, right? So when Arjuna sees these warriors entering the mouths of this universal form, like moths entering fire, literally there is fire emitting from these mouths, and these warriors like Bhishma, Drona, when he specifically sees the people who he loves them so much, they heading fast like moths into the mouths of into the fire of mouths of Krishna's various universe in the various forms, and their skulls would break at the teeth of these forms. It's a sight very intolerable to Arjuna. Yeah, so in this way, Bhagavad Gita offers a theology that is very inclusive of destructive nature that exists within this material world. This helps us come to a balanced understanding of reality of this world. Yeah, so this universal form demonstrates that the cause of death is not Arjuna. It just shows that the warriors merely are receiving their karmic reactions to their past actions, right? So everybody is going through what they're experiencing based on their past actions. If suppose there is a murderer and he was awarded a capital punishment. And there was an executor who is supposed to execute this person. If the executor feels compassion and empathy towards this prisoner, this murderer who actually killed, will it save that person? Right? It won't save him, right? Because ultimately he will be killed, whether the executor acts on the order of the judge or not. If this particular executor doesn't work towards this particular action, somebody else will be taken. But that act of punishing this particular individual is not going to stop. So Krishna tells Arjuna the same fact. Hey, I already ordained death to them, and you have actually had a nice demonstration right now. So if you don't want to kill them, that is fine. But it is a fact that they're going to be killed in this war. That is a fact I already arranged. And it is up to you. You want to become an instrument in this and gain the glory, or I can use somebody else. That's fine. So you decide on how you want to proceed with this particular plan of me. And naturally, Arjuna would accept to become the instrument in the hands of Krishna. So now this section talks about the prayers of Arjuna, because Arjuna had a very loving, friendly relationship with Krishna until then in his life. Now the friend has turned into a student. He learned all these lessons now until now. After seeing the universal form, this is the ultimate learning for Arjuna. Is this just takes Arjuna's understanding of Krishna to another level, completely a different level. He was so amazed at Krishna, and he suddenly turns into a devout worshipper after this particular instant of witnessing the universal form of the Supreme Lord. And he describes this universal form. I can't even bow down to you because I don't know where you are beginning, where your middle is, where your end is. So it's so fascinating. And ultimately, after seeing all the terror that is going to happen in the near time, Arjuna would say, I request to actually show me your two-handed form. I'm very happy that you have showed me this gigantic universal form. Krishna will not immediately turn back to the two-handed form. He first teases Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, this grand form is so rare. Why are you asking me to again take back? This is so rare. Nobody has seen. Arjuna says, it is great, it is grand, but I had enough of it. Please take it back. I don't want to witness this any further. I'm very, very happy with your two-handed form, where I can relate to you in a loving way and serve you. So in this way, this particular universal form, this particular conclusion of this chapter is that this universal form is rare, but rarer is the two-handed manifestation form of the Supreme Lord, where a devotee can relate to Krishna with love and devotion. That is Bhaktiyama Abhijanati. Krishna can be understood only through the process of bhakti. There is no other means through which one can understand. So even this two-handed form can be manifested, appreciated, and loved by devotee only through devotion. So ultimately, the message is that cultivate devotion towards Lord. So thereby you can actually witness the form of the Lord. Right? That's what qualified Arjuna to witness the universal form of the Lord. So I just will go over one verse in depth. Again, taken from Chaitanya Prabhu, very nice concept. It's very important concept I felt among the entire chapter actually. So let's see. So Bhakti Renders metaphysical into physical, and the physical into metaphysical. Right? This is a very, very fascinating concept until we actually understand. Until one becomes a devotee, one will not understand this. Right? We all know that deity is actually made of a stone or wood. If it is Jagannath deity, it is made of wood. If it is Krishna deity, it is made of primarily stone. But we also know that it is made of stone, but it is not just stone. It is not just a stone. Why? The concept is very simple. I mean, this concept we use everywhere already. Suppose you have a piece of paper and also another $100 bill. Both of them are piece of paper. Both may have some print, but they're not the same, because there is a value that is promised by the government of that particular country when it published that bill. So there is value to it, right? It's not the same as any other piece of paper that is made of similar material, similar paint, similar color, everything same. But there is no assurance from the government. Then it's not the same. So similarly, the deity form is also a special form where the metaphysical or the transcendental form of the Lord, which cannot be witnessed by our gross physical eye, is actually rendered into a form that we can witness and experience in a very reciprocal way. Right? So it is out of the kindness of the Supreme Lord, he manifests in the physical form. From the person who is metaphysical, manifests in a physical form, so that we can actually relate to him in a loving way. So the deity is a manifestation of that supreme absolute truth through the channel of material, which is either a stone or a wood. Right? So similarly, the other fascinating concept is the physical can become metaphysical, meaning the physical actions we perform, right? But when we perform those actions, right, with the understanding of the higher reality of the absolute truth, these actions will acquire special metaphysical significance. Suppose you are cooking, but you are cooking with your understanding in your mind that this is for the pleasure of Krishna, and with the devotion, if you cook, that action of yours, though it is physical, it becomes metaphysical. Though it is karma, it becomes akarma. Actually, it will burn away your karma, because so that's how the transcendental nature of the process of bhakti is, right? So similarly, mantra we chant, the holy name we chant, is also a sound like any other mundane song, but because this particular chanting of the holy name is done with love for Lord, it expresses love within the heart of the jiva for the divine, right? Even though it is a physical sound, it is infused with transcendental potency or metaphysical potency. You see how it works? So bhakti actually works both ways. You can actually have something transcendental manifest in a physical form, or something that is physical, like your regular food or your voice that you can render, which is physical, that can be actually infused with metaphysical potency or transcendental potency. So this shows the power and dynamism of the process of bhakti, which is unique to only bhakti. No other process has such transcendental dynamism. So it helps us to understand this process of, as we progress in the process of bhakti, it helps us understand the difference between what is material and what is transcendental, or what is physical versus what is metaphysical, then we understand that transcendental is directly connected to physical. Because I remember very well when I was reading books of all these other people from other spiritual organizations, I used to think metaphysical is something supramundane, that's something that we cannot do while living in this world or while living normal life. But as we make progress in, as we understand more about bhakti, we can understand there is a very correlatable relation between physical and transcendental, and the reality can, can be experienced from, the physical things can be experienced transcendentally, and transcendental things can be experienced through physical means, right? So the connection is in both ways. Physical can manifest as metaphysical, metaphysical can manifest as physical, right? So in this way, we can understand the potency of bhakti through the process of potency of bhakti.
Prabhuji, when you say metaphysical, can we replace metaphysical with the spiritual word?
Yeah, anything that we cannot experience with physical, right? Physical means basically a mundane material.
Shape and
So that's the great dynamism of bhakti, where we can transfer between the manifestations from physical to metaphysical, metaphysical to physical, or material to transcendental, or transcendental to material. So it's a very, I like this concept. That's why I kept it from, it's taken from Chaitanya Chandra. So any questions?
Question, Prabhuji.
Hmm.
So universal form is rare, and the two-hand form is rarest of the rare, right? That's what is mentioned.
Yeah.
So in the past, Gajendra also saw two-handed form of Mahavishnu. Same Dhruva Maharaj also has seen, and Narada Mahamuni also seen. I'm trying to understand the statement, the two-hand form is rare of the rarest, but all great souls have seen the form, right?
Yeah.
But not the universal form.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the reason why it is mentioned as the rarest of rare is, to the universal form, the devotee only sees from how he can relate to it. So the jiva can render loving service to the two-handed form, but he cannot do the same thing to the universal form. So that is why, from devotee's perspective, the two-handed form is far more approachable, far more relatable, and that's why it is considered as. It's not the rarity of occurrence; it's the rarity of relating in the process of bhakti. That's what devotee appreciates. Making sense?
Okay.
It's from the perspective of relating to the Supreme Lord. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, Lord Chaitanya manifests. We haven't discussed this universal form. So Lord Chaitanya manifests the universal form of Krishna that Arjuna had witnessed to Advaita Acharya. Have you heard about that? Any of you?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So Lord Chaitanya also manifests this form. It's a very interesting pastime. We could not cover because there are so many of such. Yeah. Any other question?
Prabhu, Hare Krishna. So, Lord also shows the 400 Narayan form.
Yes,
Here, you don't mention about that. So, I know this is a very short description of that, but just curious on the transformation from the universal form to 400 to 200. So, many devotees do worship the 400 form.
Yeah, Vishnu
So,
form.
how do you differentiate that here?
I mean, the differentiation meaning. So whether 200 form is superior, or what's the?
No, I mean Vaishnava also may render service to 400
400
form.
form. Yes. That is
Yes.
based on how one relates to, if if a devotee relates to the Supreme Lord in awe and reverence especially.
Right.
So in that particular relation, the jiva would like to experience this 400 form of the Supreme Lord, based on how his relation with the Supreme Lord is.
Right.
So in which case he appreciates that the most.
Right. So 400
But if you
form
look at
is
Radharani, the pastimes of Vrindavan, that Narayana form actually appears. So one time there is a story where Krishna, was singing flute, attracted all the gopis. They all come in search of him. Radharani, was relating to Krishna, and then suddenly Krishna's form disappears from this place, and everybody is searching. Radharani was asking every plant, flower, insect about Krishna's whereabouts. She was crying tears, and suddenly this Narayana form appears to all the gopis.
yes.
Now all of them say, "Oh, thank you, Narayana, you have appeared, but we want to see Krishna."
Where is my Krishna? Correct.
Where is my Krishna? So they use that form not out of, they won't be fascinated by the appearance. In fact, they would ask about Krishna's whereabouts to the Narayan. They don't want to spend more time there. They appreciate, but so in that way, devotee relates according to his relation with the Supreme Lord.
Right. Got it. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? If not, 1 second.